Welcome back. Another wonderful day of Photoshop. I'm going to show you how to make something like this. You don't have to do the exact same thing as me, but just like this, where you have a statue or an object or even a person, and you basically slice them up nicely and you move them out and you add a little bit of a 3D effect around them. This is always dependent on the actual photo you have. For right now, I have this photo, which I found on pexels.com. I just typed in statue, and this is one of the ones that came up. And it is a rabbit. I'm guessing from Alice in Wonderland. Well, I guess it's pretty obvious. That's my guess. And the best way to do this right now is standard practice, which is to import open with. So you right click on your image, open with Photoshop, and you will have the image in there. This one is very different than what I've done here because I'll show you how to do all these different changes. It just takes a little bit of time. It's not that long. It's actually not that difficult. It's only a few different tools we're going to use. And I'm going to give you a couple extra hints and tips on blending things together and using the object itself. Now, one thing to notice is that this is a pixelized or a I don't even know what the name for this is exactly right now, but it's not rounded. There's always a squared off or flattened edge or flattened surface, which is what we're going to be using because you can see there's some 3D parts where I've kind of used what is in the image itself. So here we go. First things first, standard practice is to copy the background that you import in just in case you want to fix something. You can just hide it and it will always be there just to support you like everything else. Next, I'm going to use the quick selection tool, or W. You can use other tools to do this, but this is just to remove the background. This one's really fast. Make sure it's on plus. You can change the brush size here, and I'll show you a couple extra tricks in a second. So just highlight the background and go all the way around, and don't worry about being perfect. Photoshop will kind of guesstimate. Let go of your mouse, and it will guesstimate where you are. If you zoom in, you can see, so this is control or command and plus and minus. I'm going to hold the space down, space bar, space button, and drag my mouse with my click, drag. I can move around. There's some spots where it kind of missed. All you do is go over. It's still on the plus. This is here. You can see inside the little mouse here, it's got a plus. I'm just kind of going over a little bit, just fixing the edges. And it once you let go of the mouse, it will kind of, if I do this and not all the way to the edge, it will fix itself to where it thinks you want it to be. And Photoshop's really good at this. Every update, it gets better and better and better. Slide up. Now here is a bit too much. This is a trick. Hold down the Alt button and it goes to a minus. So Alt, and you can reverse it. So you can add selection or a minus selection, which depends on how you look at it. Right now it's minus selection. Going up here, I want this background, so I'm going to go Alt and get the ear. Not perfect, and it will sort of guesstimate. There we go. Fix that a bit. I don't really care about being exact. If you want to get a smaller brush size, just go here and bring your brush down, and you can see you can go into the little cracks and get it all right. Now add all of this, and Photoshop has done a pretty good job there. Just checking the rest, going around, checking this little dotted moving edge all the way around the rabbit. Oh, down here, fix that tiny little bit here. I don't really care that much what in there. You won't even see it later. We can fix it all we want. Good, good. Right here, I'm going to add just a little bit. You can bring your brush up again. I think that's pretty good. This is just to show you it's not for perfection right now. You can spend all the time you want, pause the video, and make it as perfect as you want. You won't ever get it perfect, but you'll get it pretty close if you just spend a bit extra time. Next, hit delete. If it deletes the rabbit, then an easy way to do this is to go to select on the top. You have file, edit, image, layer, type, and select inverse. Inverse will reverse the selection object, and if I delete now, it gets rid of the rabbit. I don't want that. I'm going to go back and inverse it again. Select, inverse, and delete. Good. Next step. This is a trick. On the layers panel, it's still selected. You don't have to, Command D gets rid of it. The image in your layer, if you hold down Control or Command on Mac and you click that image, it will select everything inside of that image. Now, since it's selected, I'm going to use this. I'm going to create a layer mask, and that layer mask is going to use the selection I just chose. If I don't have any selection, the layer mask will be blank. But if I Command click and layer mask, now you can see it's got a little bit of an outline of that rabbit of this shape, and it gives me these options under properties. If you don't have this here, go Window, Properties, and this should pop up somewhere. Maybe here, you can drag it over, you can move things around all you want, but right here. And feathering. So this is important. Nothing should be selected anymore, just in case you hit Command or Control D. Right down here you can see, that's too many. And now all the selections get taken away. Feathering, watch this. I can crank it up, and the edges, all the edges of the object, which is a great trick, especially for people, especially for hair. When you're cutting out people's hair, man, is that the most frustrating thing. All you do is do a guesstimation as best as you can. Don't expect perfection. And then you select it using this, right? Command, click, vector mask, and feather. Now, good trick for feathering is typically it's around 2 to 4% is a good amount of feather. 4%. If you go too much, you can start seeing it. And if I zoom in, it starts to really cut away at the edge here. If I bring that feather down just a bit, let's go 3%. 3% is pretty good. And what feathering does is it just adds a bit of a gradient, a slight transparency on the edge from totally transparent to the object itself. And it helps it blend in with the background. So if you have any troubles with something kind of popping out too much, like it looks like it's cut and paste, I'll select it, right? Click, Command click, and then vector mask and feather, and you will see a night and day difference in just the blending of different things if you're cutting different objects and putting them into one photo. So now we have our rabbit, we have a selection, we're good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and convert it to a smart object. And you will have to do this as well. Even if you don't have the vector mask, if you didn't do that, right click, convert to smart object. And this next step is actually really important as well because we won't be able to move things around without doing this. We're going to rasterize the layer. If you are too worried about this, what you can do is go back and hit Command J on that layer. It copies it, or just right click, duplicate layer, and then get rid of, just save that for the background. So I'm going to rasterize is not there until I smart object, then rasterize. Rasterize makes it just a simple, basic, cut-of-the-mill photo with nothing special involved. Everything you've done to it just gets put into one little section, one layer, just like this. Like Bob Ross for a second there. Now, this is where we have some fun. So hit the L button on your keyboard, and that gets a lasso, and you will see it if you drop down this menu. So if you just hold down this, like Photoshop changes from once in a while, and lately, the past year, they've changed the toolbar here on the left to include a drop-down menu because there's so many others. And this kind of removes this idea of holding down these buttons where you have individualized the 3 dots there. So if you hold it down, you can find the polygonal lasso tool, or just L. If you hit L again, it'll go there. I think Shift L goes to magnetic, but we'll just do L. I'm going to go back and do a single. There we go. Okay, so this is where it gets a bit complicated, and I think if you just try to maintain some layer identities, you'll really get the hang of it. So again, make sure that this layer here is rasterized. If you can't rasterize it, convert it to smart object, then rasterize it. Here we go. So you're going to cut your statue. Let's say it's my rabbit, or your whatever you want, or your portrait, in places that kind of make sense to you. This is where you get your artistic style to come out. And a quick rule that I like to keep is that all the cuts keep them as straight as possible. Don't add all these little zigzagged little lines. I'm just clicking the mouse every single time. It gets a bit ridiculous, and maybe that's what you want. Maybe you can make it work, but I've been unable to personally make it look as good as just a straight cut line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this rabbit in half to start. I'm going to cut right across like this and go all the way around just like that. Now, since I have this cut out, I'm selecting just this area. That's what it does. This tool selects a certain area that you create. You create your own selection. Go to your Move tool or V, and you are going to drag it away from the original body. And then I'm going to drag this up here. I'm going to hit Command D and drag the whole rabbit down to give it some space above, because I'm going to cut out more and drag up even further. You might want to zoom in, Command plus or Control plus. Next, I'm going to keep doing this. So back to L. I'm going to cut on an angle here, go up. You can do whatever you want. I'm just kind of randomly selecting, and go back to the original point, and it should show the lasso button to finish off the selection. Command D to remove that. Cut. Let's cut across the face, up, over, and like back to the original. And there we go. V. I'm going to drag this over like this. I'm going to do another one. This is going to be a bit different than the original. You can do whatever you like. I'm going to cut off this ear. So I'm going to go down. Let me zoom in even more. I'm going to go down to right to the edge. I'm going to cut across. This one I'm going to follow along the edge here and just go a little bit further. Now zoom out. Hold down spacebar and drag over. What's wonderful is you hold down spacebar, it doesn't change the tool you're currently in use with. Now it's over there. So again, back to V, which is your Move tool. I'm going to drag it out a bit, go out. I think that's pretty good. All right, next step. Now we're going to separate these into layers. This is where it gets a bit interesting. So again, back to your lasso. You're going to select each one, not exactly, just kind of generalized around it. And you are going to hit, once it's selected and you have that moving box, you're going to go Command J. And what it does now is it puts that onto a new layer right on top of the previous layer. Go back to the first layer, lasso. Next part, around, and then Command J. Next part, go back to the original layer, because what you're doing is you are selecting from whatever layer you're on. So if I select this, but I go up to this new layer, it has nothing to choose because there's nothing there. But on the original layer, the first little copy here, you have the actual part. So now Command J, and that copies that. And the last one here, I have this. And then back to the, see it's on a new layer here, go back, you got to select the original layer again, and I'm back. Now we're going to put in order. So this here, I'm going to label these things because, actually before I go on, sorry, I missed one step. I'm going to remove these parts from the original layer. And this I'm going to actually make another copy, because that's what I do, make copies of copies of copies. Just in case I want to fix something. Usually it doesn't have to, but it's just handy. So here we go. So I'm going to select each one. So Command and click the picture. And it's this one. Select this layer and just hit backspace or delete. And what it does is it removes it from the original layer. So now I basically selected this from the top and removed it from here. Oh, that was nice. And then up to here, next one, select this one. Select layer, delete, backspace, whatever your computer uses. Select this one, here, backspace. Select here, here, backspace. Now, if I take this away, I can take them all away, and they basically are all gone. Put them back, and they're there. The bottom layer does not have each part again. And this is going to be really helpful if you want to move stuff around, because if you didn't delete these selections from the original layer here, the copy of the original layer, then if you move it later on just to get more distance away, or you want to change something, it's really difficult because you have to delete it from 2 layers at the same time or move it from 2 layers at the same time, and it gets confusing. So just do this. Next, I'm gonna just O1, O2, original, O3. You can call it whatever you want. You can label it the actual part. So this would be neck. You can do whatever you like, right? Face, bottom, face, top. This is the long episode. And ear. That's fine. This is just to keep it from getting confusing, because we're going to add some more layers with the 3D effect now. Next step. So we have the bottom. Now try to keep things in order. If the ear is on the very, very top of everything, not literally above it in the image, but in the 3D space that this would be, if you want the ear to be above this part, then make sure that the ear, sorry, double clicked, is on top. The neck, I think the neck would be below in 3D space. If I would had, you'll see in a second, below the bottom of the face. So I'll put that there. I'm just going to reorder this so that it makes sense to me in 3D space. Now, here we go. Let's add a layer. Let's call this body. Let's add a layer behind the body. So if this is all layers on top of each other, I want to go down below it and click the plus button for a new layer. And now it's below the body. So again, just to reiterate, I'm going to click below the body I want it to be, because the 3D part, it has to be behind it. And you'll see why in a second, right there. I'm going to go to lasso, again, L. And now I get to have a little bit of a 3D drawing contest with all of you, and we get to draw. So I'm going to find the corner, just estimate right now, and I'm going to imagine where the 3D back of this body would be if it was in 3D space. I'm going to pull it out to here. I'm going to pull it back in. I'm just making this up. This is just for fun. Just to the edge. And then I'm going to go below and fill in the blank just in case there's a bit of an overlap. And now I have this. Now here's the next step. This is a new thing. I want you to hit G on your keyboard, or go right here to the gradient tool. And this is a bit interesting because it should be black and white for you. I did something earlier, so it's pink for me. But the gradient tool should be black and white. If you drag from under and drag up, what's going to happen is you're dragging from the darker part, from the left of the gradient to the right of the gradient, and it becomes this. So if I drag from the top down, now the pink on the left side of it is going to be from the top down. If I drag from the left, it'll be from the left side. So it always drags from the left to the right. Now I'm going to change this. So I'm going to look at the picture here, and I'm going to just estimate where I think the gradient would be. Ooh, that's not good. All the way across. There we go. So looking at the shadows of this image here, I can see that the shadows might be actually from over here going up, but because in 3D space this neck part is hanging above, it would cover some of the light. So, and there's some lighter stuff over here than versus over here. This is just your own perspective. If maybe you learned this in school, maybe you didn't. Either way, all you're doing is kind of guesstimating where you think the shadows would be. Next step is, I consider, really important. You can make it neon if you want, or make it whatever color you want, but I'm going to match the actual color of the rabbit. So double click. This is going to apply to every further gradient I do, and you'll see that there is this lovely box that pops up. Don't change anything here. You have these little dials. You can pull them up, and what these do is just change the locations. You can add more. Don't add more with this color dropper tool. Click the bottom left. And now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to find a dark part in the shadows, which looks like it's right here in his armpit. And now this becomes that. The light part, find the lighter parts, which is about over here. And now what's happening is the gradient colors, the two colors, are matching. If you get extras like this, just click it and delete it. So again, if you get extra little notches here to use, click that notch you don't want and delete it. Click, delete. Okay, just in case. You can add more gradients if you want. And now that is that gradient color. Let's redo this, drag over, and now it becomes just like the color of the rabbit. So here we go. I actually don't like that. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to redo this lasso just for my own perspective here. Command D, because I didn't like how it hung over the edge here. I think it should come just under. This is not meant to be in the forefront. This is just meant to give you the sense of 3D space. Here we go. Now up to, what are we on? The neck. So that's the body. Now we're on the neck. I'm going to go below the neck because I want this original neck part to be on top of my gradient. I don't want the gradient to be on top of the neck. Here we go. Layer, the new layer, lasso. Let's keep that same angle from below. Let's go like this. And there we go. So now that I have this lovely shape, back to the G for gradient, same angle, I'm going to pull over and I have that gradient. Next, let's go to the bottom of the face, click below it, and add a lovely layer. I'm saying lovely a lot today. Find the edge. Let's go a harsher angle here. And let's pull it out just a little bit from behind. So both sides are a bit harsher. This one was a bit on the inside, and like this one is a very, very harsh angle. In, gradient, over, and done. Next, I'm going to show where this ear used to be. So let's go L. Lasso, face top. This is the top of the face. Click below it, add a layer, and now I'm going to lasso where I think the ear used to be attached. You can do whatever you want. If you find the same photo and you're copying me exactly, great, copy me. You can practice later on whatever you want, but for right now, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. You can use whatever you want. It all works the same as the end. It's about your eye catching these differences. The last thing is I'm going to add for the ear. So below the ear, add a layer and come up here. Lasso. Let's come up here a bit. This one I'm going to add actually 2 lasso layers to. I'm going to add one here just to this bright edge. I'm going to gradient that one far away. Now, why would I go far away? Because I want the darker parts to not be seen as much. If I pull that from here, from the close up, then you'd have more dark. But I want the dark to be far away, just like that. Then I'm going to go Command D to get rid of the selection and lasso from, let's go really close here. You can even see the pixels. Oh, I missed the gradient there. Let me go back, Command Z and G from far away all the way past, just past the edge. There we go. And that way you can see it's fixed again. All right, so lasso. Let's come down a bit just to follow something like this line over here. Let's go down a bit of an edge. And then I'm going to, for fun, come past it just a tiny bit. This one, I got to stay as exact as possible because on the same layer. You can do different layers, but I'm going to stick on the same layer. There we go. Gradient. Now, how about this angle? That's good. Okay, that's kind of weird. Doesn't really make sense, but none of this makes sense, to be honest. All right. So, one last thing. I'm going to find the neck layer. I'm going to add something else here just to fill in this gap. Here we go. Follow along. G. That's better. Now it kind of has a hunch. You can see it. It's adding these 3D looks where the shadows, the shading of the gradients, are making a 3D effect around it. Okay, let's say I want to move the bottom of the face bottom, out a little bit. Make sure you select the layer that is attached to its background. Go over to the Move tool, or M, and then you can, sorry, V, my fault, not M. M is the selection tool, and then you can drag it over just a bit. But be careful, because if your background has this, you might have to fix the background. So what I might do is just pull it up a bit. I'm going to select the face top and pull that out. And now I'm going to select the ear. So I'm moving them all in proportion so that they make a bit more sense and a bit further apart. There we go. Okay. So we basically have the idea. A little bit less time spent than on this one. This one has different cuts. You can see I had this one sliced and pulled to the side a bit. Same idea with the ear. A little bit of an overhang here with the selection. But the next step, we're going to be colorizing this, which you can do whatever you want. Let's add some shapes just for some fun. I'm going to add a big pink box. So double click this. The outside is white, the outside line here. If you don't want that, you can just go stroke nothing. So this is a transparent stroke. Hit OK. On this box, if you want to change the color of your box, if it's not whatever color you want, on the layers over here, just double click that rectangle and you can change that to whatever you like. So now Command T, and I'm going to angle that. I'm going to pull it down. I'm actually going to hold Shift and pull it so it doesn't change this size too. I'm going to keep this just like this. And that's good. Enter. Now, click that layer, Command J, copy that layer. Let's pull this down. I'm going to move it to, let's say, that blue. Sure. Command J. Copy that layer. Change that one to a yellow. And then go back here to this rectangle, and I'm going to Command T. Command T is going to change the size. A little bit bigger. There we go. So now I am set. Oh, cancel. V. These three text. These three layers, I'm going to drag them all the way down and put them under my bottom layer. And that way I have this. You can add more shapes. If you don't have them, just hold down this here. It should be in here somewhere. You can adjust the shapes. If you add a circle, let's say I add a new layer. You can add a circle. This is just getting kind of cheesy, but just to show you some things you can do. Change the circle color to, let's go purple. This is really neon. And there it is. Or put it up here. Yeah, let's put it up here. Change the size a little bit. Change the rotation. So Command T is size and rotation. If you just find the part on the shape. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these. I'm going to pull them over just a little bit. That way it's in the center. Select my circle, my oval now. All right. So that's basically what it is. The rest is just nuance. Let's group this stuff together. So the rabbit, I'm choosing it all, selecting it all, hitting the group button. That way it's easily, instead of having this long list of stuff, it's easily right there. Let's go to the background and group that too. Call it background. Labeling your stuff is super handy. Rabbit. Actually, let's go silly rabbit. And let's add an adjustment. So click on the top layer and adjustments. If you don't have it here, we have it under window and adjustments. And it's a very common thing to have. You have all this different stuff in here. I'm going to go to hue and saturation. And it creates a brand new layer with all these different options, and you can mess around. But what it's going to be doing is it's going to be applying whatever you change in the saturation and hue to everything below it. And I'll show you how to fix that in a second. But what I'm doing is I'm changing the entire hue. Let's make it super neon. Let's increase our saturation. And what it's doing is even the shadows are getting a hue change. Everything gets a hue change. You can lighten up just a little bit. And what I think this kind of gives it is that retro 80s style. If you don't want that, you can actually remove it and make it more vintage looking, right? Saturation. I mean, if you look at the 1950s, 40s ads versus the 80s ads, basically what they did is just turned up the saturation. So let's go back here. I like that a lot. There we go. So that's that. Now I'm going to go into the rabbit, and let's say you like your statue the way it is. You can copy this. Again, I'm not going to. I'm going to merge the group. An easy way to do that is actually to go select it, go Command E, and it makes the entire group into a single layer. Now we get to have some fun. So the saturation is applying to everything below it. And the reason why is because in the saturation properties menu, this little button here goes either across through the arrow, if you can see it or not, it's pretty small. The line through the arrow means it applies to everything. And the no line through the arrow means it only applies to the layer below it. This here. Again, so now it's everything. I'm going to add one more on the rabbit. Adjustments, hue and saturation, and apply it just to the rabbit. And I'm going to change it just a bit more to red clock. Let's go green just to match this a bit. And I'm going to increase the saturation just only on the rabbit. So again, if I click this, it's going to apply to everything, but now it's just the rabbit. So I can get rid of this with the eyeball. And you see it's only changing the rabbit. If you like that contrast, you can do whatever you want. I'm just showing you some tricks and tips. And let's say I do one more adjustment. I'm going to adjust the levels, or the curves, I mean. And the curves is great because it changes. Right now it's changing all the colors. You can select certain colors. You can select certain colors by clicking here, the eyedropper, and selecting it from the image itself. But I'm just going to go RGB. I'm going to bring this down a bit, apply it just to the rabbit. And what this is going to do is going to darken, really over contrast. You're getting these bleeds. And look at that. You're getting these odd shapes come up because what's happening is the light and the colors are getting so vibrant that the bit rate and the color rate, the parts of this actual photo are overdone, like blown out. It's like too bright for your eyes to handle, in the sense that Photoshop can't handle it. It can handle it, but it's showing you like this, so it gets these really awesome, I love this effect. Over saturation, I guess you call it, over brightness. And I think that's good. So when I showed you, zoom out, this one only has one hue and saturation to the entire thing, and this one has it to a few different things, everything and just the rabbit. I hope you like this video. A little bit longer, but it showed you some really cool and really helpful, actually, tips and tricks with creating these really vaporwave retro 80s kind of styles. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.